Was it all just a dream, or did I actually stumble onto something? Either way, I will have to keep digging into my memories. Welcome back, listeners, to The Secrets of a Shadow. I stared at the case file. Why did that name seem so familiar? I know that face too, but from where? It is at the front of my memory, but I just, for the life of me, can't remember where I've seen her. Either way, I need to go see the crime scene. I get up to go, but Darlene walks in, a confused look upon her face. She asks me if I remember getting a case file last night. I say no, and shake my head. I do not really remember much of anything last night. She says that a file is missing from her stack and was wondering if I had gotten it. Maybe I had, and I just don't remember. Either way, I have got to get going before they clean up the crime scene. I grab my coat and my hat and head out the door to my old 1957 red Cadillac. I hop in and the engine roars to life. That's weird. I have to adjust my seat. Why would I have moved the seat to a car no one else drives? Never mind that. I have to get going. I drive through the small town of West Falls. People are out and about, strolling the streets, smiles on their ignorant faces. If only they knew this city like I do. Truth be told, there is a dark side to this pleasant city, filled with witchcraft, sacrificial cults, and trouble around most corners. Most of that has mellowed out in recent years, but some of it still lingers from time to time. That is where I come in. My job is to tell the stories of the people who encounter that kind of trouble. The police never know how to deal with those cases, as many of the officers, like the rest of the town, are superstitious. They refuse to deal with the occult, fearing of getting cursed or something like that. It does not scare me, though. All that mumbo-jumbo is just some hooligan making trouble for someone else. None of that witchy stuff is real anyway. There's always a man behind the mask. I arrive at the crime scene, a small bridge over the peaceful creek that runs through the center of town, that eventually runs over the falls that gave this town its name. Her body lay just beside the creek, pale and stiff. Her eyes wide open, staring off into the unknown. Her soul has just joined. I joined John down beside her body. He nodded to me. He was surprised to see me this morning, after the late night he had last night with me. I look at him confused and ask him what he meant. He asked if I remember visiting the station last night looking for this girl. I replied that I didn't remember much of last night and to fill me in on his details. He told me that I had stopped by and reviewed the security footage of the girl on the north side last night, and then I took off. I thanked him and approached the body. There was nothing out of the ordinary about the way she lay, her eyes glazed in death and her limp body stiffening with rigor mortis. There was no noticeable bruising and no noticeable wounds to distinguish her cause of death right off the bat. Her body was clean of mud, so obviously this is not where she died. Okay, did she wash up here then? I thought to myself. But that could not be. She was too far up the bank to have just washed up. This must be a dump site for her body then. I look around for footprints, but see only one set approaching the body. They look to be the same size and shape as the victims. I must admit I was perplexed. I looked around the crime scene. It was just too serene. The water flowed smoothly over the banks of the stream. Birds chirped and hopped in branches of nearby trees. Other than there was a dead girl under the bridge. I glanced over the body again and noticed something odd. A symbol tattooed on her wrist in red ink. It looked like a compass rose, but instead of having the cardinal directions on it, it had odd symbols at each point of the star. I called John over. He looked at the symbol and frowned. He told me that is the same symbol that I had found last night. I wonder what it means. I shake my head as I have no idea what it means. Suddenly, a flashback from the night before came to me in a wave. I remember seeing the symbol on the paper in the girl's hand as she ran across the street in the north. But really, what did it mean? I racked my brain for any recollection of its meaning. Maybe heading up north would help. I drew the symbol in my notebook and said my farewells. I headed back to my car and headed back to my office. I had some thinking to do. I arrived back in my office at midday. Darlene was waiting for me with a concerned look on her face. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that some mysterious man had arrived and delivered a package for me. She motioned to a brown box wrapped in paper. My name was scrawled in red ink across the paper with the weird symbol written right under my name. I examined the package. It was a smallish square box about 6 inches in width and 6 inches in height. I tipped the box slightly, and it was light and nothing rattled. I picked up the box and thanked Darlene and headed into my office. I placed it down on my desk and started to open the paper, carefully keeping the paper intact. Underneath the paper was a small cardboard box with a lid that lifted off easily. Inside the box, packed neatly in some stuffing, was a small toy car, specifically a small brown VW Bug. The exact car of the deceased Miss Matter. I looked closely at the car and noticed that it wasn't just your standard toy car. It was an exact replica of the victim's car. You could see some clothes tossed in the back seat, some trash in the front seat, and the note Sarah had written laying neatly on the dashboard. What really caught my attention though was the weird compass painted on the door of the car. That was not on her actual car, so why put it here when everything else about the toy was exactly like the real thing? Was this the calling card of some new organization in West Falls? Suddenly, the phone on my desk sprang to life. John was on the other end, telling me there was something I had to see down at the station. I thanked him and set the toy down on my desk and walked back out of the door to head down to the police station. When I got to the station, it had begun to rain again. Big droplets of water fell from the sky, exploding upon the ground with dull splashes. It soaked my overcoat and pooled in the brim of my hat, causing it to droop low over my face. I entered the police station and was met with a hustle and bustle that was common in this place. A feeling of anxiousness could be felt throughout the whole station. Something was up. I nodded to the secretary and signed in on the registry before heading back to John's desk. He saw me before I saw him and called out to me. John called out to me and asked if I had a minute. I nodded to him and said I did. He told me the talk screens came back on the girl, clean as a whistle, nothing in her system. I gave John a puzzled glance. He told me that wasn't even the weirdest part. He told me the autopsy showed that the cause of death was her heart literally exploding inside her chest, like it was grabbed and crushed. The doc said he could almost see finger marks across her heart. John handed me a picture, and sure enough, it looked like a handprint across a crushed heart. I winced. He asked me if I had any idea what could have caused that. I shook my head. I had never seen anything like that before. I pulled out my notebook and flipped to the page with the compass on it. I showed it to John and asked him if he recognized this. He said he did, that there was a piece of cloth with the exact symbol found on the girl's body. He had no idea what it meant though. I eyed John carefully, nodding slightly. I asked to see a picture of the cloth and John pulled it up on his computer. It was the same symbol, same red paint, and the same odd markings along the border. It truly must mean something. But what? Maybe the library might have something on it. I thanked John for his time and head over to the library. When I arrive at the library, the rain continues to pour down in droves, as to be expected for spring here in West Falls. I step out of my car and head into the library, getting drenched in the process. greeted by a cheery librarian welcoming me out of the rain. I thanked her for her kindness and asked where I could find some books on the occult, specifically symbols of the occult. I had a sneaking suspicion that if I were going to find anything, it was going to be there. The librarian's cheer diminished slightly for a second before she pointed me to a quiet corner of the library. I thanked her once again and began diving in. I grabbed books on ancient Sumerian culture, ancient Greek, Roman, Satanic, and all other major religions around the world that I could think of. It was not until I was looking through an obscure book on a sect of Christianity that I found a similar symbol. It was the red compass rose, but the symbols were slightly different. The symbol belonged to a branch of the Satanic Christianity called the Church of the Awakened Soul. The religion believed that if you used the compass no one could follow, you would find awakening of your soul through the power of an ancient being called Shamyaza. The symbol was the church's emblem, and it signified the search for the awakening of the soul through the power of freedom from authority, which was granted by the power of Shamyaza. Great. Another cult here in West Falls. John is not going to like to hear about this. He is just as superstitious as the rest of the town. It looks like I may be on my own to solve this case. I take some notes on the little information that I can find on the organization and put the books back on the shelf. I head out of the library and thank the librarian as I head out through the door. She smiles politely and thanks me for stopping by. Something seems off about her though. Like her smile is just slightly too sincere, or her eyes are hiding something. Maybe it's just my paranoia kicking in. I walk out to my car and find it has been repainted. The large compass rose covers my door in neat red paint and a note sitting on my front seat. The car was undamaged other than the paint, so whoever did this must have picked the lock. I opened the door and examined the note. It read, "The ones who seek the truth will find nothing but lies, but those that seek the night will never lose their way. Choose your path wisely and truth will follow." They signed the paper with the same symbol and the same red paint. What a weird message. Those that seek the truth will find nothing but lies? How could that be? Does the truth not come to those who seek it? That is what I have always believed. But now I got this foreboding message. I put the note on the passenger seat and felt the paint. It was cool to touch but somehow dry and unsmeared even in the rain. Whoever had done this most likely did it right as I walked into the library. Or was it there before this point and I just never noticed? I walked back into the library and asked the sweet librarian if they had any security footage of the parking lot. No luck, unfortunately, was the answer I got. I thanked her again and was met with another overly sweet smile and farewell. That's when I saw the tattoo on her wrist. Or just enough of it to recognize the symbol. I went to ask her about it, but the clicking of her nails on the hard desk caught my attention. It sounded just like rain on a tin roof. My mind went blank for a second. Wait, what was I doing? That's right, thanking the librarian for her time and effort in helping me. And she smiled that sweet smile again and thanked me for coming in. I thanked her once again and head out into the rain to my car. I drove back over to the police station to tell John about my findings. He seemed anxious when I told him what I had found out. He said that he would help me in whatever way he could, but he seemed very hesitant to offer his assistance. I don't blame him. A new cult in West Falls was never good, especially not one where the members turned up dead. I then told him about my car and the note. John got even more uneasy and made up some excuse that he had to go. He isn't going to help me. I sighed and head out of the police station. I got in my car and just sat there. I wondered where I might find more information on this cult that had shown up and who Shamyaza was. Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. There was one person who might know what is going on. I started my car and went to go see Mary, the witch on Well Street.